What is going on, everyone? My name is Jason, and this is the iPhone 7 Plus iPhone 10 comparison. Question: do you have an iPhone 7 Plus, a phone you upgraded to not too long ago, and you're on the fence of whether or not you should upgrade to the much coveted but exorbitantly priced iPhone 10? Well, I was in that very predicament, so I thought I'd put together a comparison of the two smartphones to help you guys figure out if the upgrade is worth it. Now, before we jump into the two iPhones, if you're interested in checking out the latest consumer tech products before you buy them, or if you're just a tech head like me, I make a video like this every single week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell icon so you can be the first to know when a new JSL review is out and you don't miss anything. That being said, let's jump into the comparison. First and foremost, let's talk about the physical design and form factor, because there has been some significant changes since the debut of the iPhone 7 Plus. The iPhone 7 Plus is made out of an aluminum unibody design, a common material used in many of the previous iterations of the iPhones before it. However, this was the first time that Apple offered their flagship phone in two different black colors. The one I have here is the very popular matte black, which still looks gorgeous. The iPhone 10, on the other hand, is almost a mishmash of two older iPhone designs. Apple decided to use a stainless steel chassis, something we saw on the original iPhone 10 years ago, and they sandwiched the front and back of the phone with glass, reminiscent of the lauded design of the iPhone 4. What you have once all this comes together is a beautiful amalgamation of premium materials and design, making for a distinctly different feeling in the hand. It's much easier to grip than the iPhone 7 Plus, but the phone is considerably more fragile and is a bona fide fingerprint magnet, no doubt. It really comes down to personal preference on which phone feels better in the hand. They both really do, but if I had to choose, the 10 feels more premium to me. It's warmer, and I like the contrast between the metal and the glass. Now, you can't properly compare the two phones without addressing the biggest difference, and that's the displays. The iPhone 7 Plus uses an IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080, and it's a great display. Colors are bright and accurate, and I've never not enjoyed consuming content on this phone, despite it in many ways being quote-unquote behind many other competitors with arguably better displays. That being said, the iPhone 10 introduced their first use of an OLED panel, coming in at a Super Retina resolution of 2436 by 1125, and it's arguably one of the best displays, if not the best display in a smartphone right now. Apple's first application of OLED technology was executed very well. The colors are well saturated without coming off cartoonish. It's super bright, and you don't have any problems viewing the phone in direct sunlight, and the phone gets to take advantage of OLED's true black benefits. There's really no question here in terms of comparison. The iPhone 10's display is better, hands down. However, that's not to say that the 7 Plus's display is awful or unusable in today's standards, but the 10's display is better in virtually every single way. Now, that point can either be strengthened or weakened by the way both phones arrange their screen-to-body ratios, which, if you haven't noticed, are quite different. The iPhone 7 Plus has the traditional chunky forehead and chin, making for a 5.5-inch display, coming in at around a 67.5 screen-to-body ratio. Not that great, as 2017 really started the bezel-free movement across smartphones, but in return, you get a much more traditional aspect ratio for consuming content and a physical home button. This allows users to navigate in a way that they're probably a lot more used to, and maintains Touch ID as the primary security feature to open the phone once it's locked. The iPhone 10, on the other hand, has an incredible 80.9% screen-to-body ratio, primarily accomplished by removing the forehead and chin that plagued the older iPhones, minus the notorious notch at the top of the phone that houses the front-facing camera, as well as the phone's depth sensing technology for Apple's new security feature, Face ID. What I love about the 10's design here is that Apple shrunk down the physical dimensions of the phone to be much closer to the regular iPhone size, while dramatically increasing the size of the screen. What you get in return is a very immersive experience when consuming content, and a phone that isn't too bulky in the hand. However, that luxury came at a price. First, back to that notch on top. Some people just can't get past it, and I will say the asymmetry can drive the obsessive compulsive kind of nuts. This is especially true when watching videos in full screen mode, which due to the 10's odd aspect ratio, slightly crops the footage and makes the notch a lot more noticeable. For me personally, it's really an afterthought and something I don't even really notice that much anymore. The other aspect the iPhone 10 had to remove in order to achieve this massive screen-to-body ratio is the home button. From a user perspective, this will likely be the most noticeable difference, as no smartphone has ever had a gesture-based UI before. Everyone is used to having some sort of home button, whether it be physical or touch capacitive. Now, the gestures, in my opinion, are easy to get used to and relatively easy to execute. Is it a change? Absolutely yes. And it will require active learning. So if you want more of the same and you hate change, keep that in mind. But Apple has a really solid track record of designing and implementing gestures in its Mac software, and up to this point, my experience swiping up to go home, toggling multitasking, and even using reachability, which is kind of tricky at first, have become second nature. This has, however, made accessing and doing certain things in iOS a bit more complicated, such as moving Control Center to the top right corner, which kinda sucks, and having to press and hold to get rid of open apps and multitasking is really annoying. But at the end of the day, I'm a fan of this gesture-based approach. I give Apple credit for trailblazing the Switch in UI, and I think it has a lot of potential. But with the removal of the home button also comes the removal of Touch ID. To keep it short and to the point, Face ID works, and it works pretty well. It works just about as often as Touch ID works, which is almost all the time, though the times it doesn't work, it's more frustrating. But it gives you the exclusive opportunity to use animojis, probably something you'll rarely use, but having the technology on your phone can be beneficial as new software applications develop over time. But my least favorite part of Face ID is that it requires you to swipe up after authentication. Wish it just opened and went straight to the home screen. Honestly though, this shouldn't hold you back from upgrading, as you'll get used to Face ID quickly. In terms of performance, though I can sit here and give you all the details, all you really need to know is that the iPhone X, with its Bionic A11 chip and its hexa-core processor, it's gonna outdo the iPhone 7 Plus in almost all benchmark performance measures. But will most users even notice? No, and that's because the iPhone 7 Plus's A10 Fusion chip and quad-core processor is still a beast in terms of performance, and you'll likely notice little to no difference in terms of daily use. iPhones are usually future-proofed enough to last you comfortably through 2 or more iterations of future iPhones, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time comparing the two, as one is not noticeably better or worse than the other, at least for the here and now. Same goes with the battery life. Although the iPhone 7 Plus has a bigger battery, the battery life on the 10 is really good, and I've had no problem getting through a day of heavy usage without charging until it's time for bed. However, a significant addition to the iPhone X is the ability to charge wirelessly and quick charge. Now, this might not be a big deal to you, but this is something that die-hard Apple fans have been clamoring for on the iPhone for a long time. And I will say it's a nice to have. It's not an absolute can't live without kind of thing, as I usually do my charging overnight, but it's nice to know that I have the ability to use Qi wireless charging and fast charging if need be. Another comparison I want to make with these phones is their cameras. The front-facing camera on the iPhone 7 Plus is a 7-megapixel camera with an f2.2 aperture that shoots in 1080p HD video. The 10's front-facing camera is similar in the sense that it has the same megapixel count and aperture size, but because of the true depth sensors, it gives you the ability to shoot portrait mode selfies and have something called portrait lighting, a software-enhanced editing feature unavailable on the iPhone 7 Plus. Truth be told, though this sounds really cool and has potential, the software for portrait selfies and the portrait lighting is not 100% yet, and it actually has more potential to ruin the image than enhance it at this point. It'll likely get better in the future, but for the here and now, it needs improvement. As far as the back cameras are concerned, the iPhone 7 Plus debuted Apple's first dual rear camera setup, which consists of 2 12-megapixel cameras, one wide angle at an f1.8 aperture, and the second a 2x telephoto zoom lens with an f2.2 aperture in this horizontal configuration. The iPhone X has similar specs on paper, also having 2 12-megapixel cameras with the same apertures and focal lengths as the iPhone 7 Plus's cameras, but with this vertical configuration and some significant functional differences. First, the iPhone X has dual optical image stabilization for both of the rear cameras, while the iPhone 7 Plus only has optical image stabilization on the primary wide-angle lens. May not seem like a big deal, but this contributes to the iPhone X's ability to take better low-light photos and better images when zoomed in. I've been quite impressed with the iPhone X's camera. The images are very sharp, the dynamic range has gotten a lot better in my opinion, and the colors are more full and vibrant. Another major difference is that the iPhone X allows you to shoot video in 4K resolution at 24, 30, or 60 frames per second, and super slow-mo in full 1080p, while the iPhone 7 Plus was limited to 4K at just 30 FPS and super slow-mo at 720p. I know most consumers don't use their phones that often to film video, and I would argue that the additional functionality of the iPhone X, though significant, isn't a night and day must-have. The last comparison I want to make between these two phones is price. You can pick up a 32GB matte black iPhone 7 Plus for $669. On the other hand, the base model 64GB space gray iPhone X is a whopping $999, making it one of the most expensive consumer smartphones in the market. Now the question is it worth it to upgrade? And that's really going to depend on what you're looking for in a smartphone. If you've been waiting and waiting for Apple to finally adopt an OLED display and get rid of those chunky bezels, then this phone will feel feel worth it to you. It's a breath of fresh air, and though I'm not going to go into whether the cost of the components of the phone itself is worth the price tag, you will emotionally feel okay with the amount of money you pay if this is something you've been waiting for. But if you've grown quite comfortable with your iPhone 7 Plus and you're not the biggest fan of change, you may want to take a pass on this one, because there is definitely change required to use this phone comfortably. And that's what it really boils down to, because there's nothing I can say about the 10 that prevents it from being a phenomenal phone. Early adopters and people who embrace change will likely say that the iPhone 10 is the best smartphone available today. Change resistors, on the other hand, will likely find the 10 frustrating and will have a much harder time justifying the phone's hefty price tag. Now personally, I'm happy with the upgrade. The iPhone 10 is great for me, as I'm admittedly chained to Apple's ecosystem, and it gives me almost everything I personally want in a smartphone. A large, immersive, high quality display, a good form factor, a solid camera, good battery life, and iOS. That's obviously not for everyone, so let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. Do you guys think that the iPhone 10 is worth the price tag and worth the upgrade from the iPhone 7 Plus? Or do you think upgrading to the iPhone 8 Plus would be better? Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. Okay, that's about it for this comparison review. Leave me a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed it. It really helps me out. In case you missed last week's video on this brand new, crazy thin mechanical keyboard by Dravo that's officially launching in late December, I'll leave a link to that in the description, and I'll leave it in one of the end cards if you want to go check it out. Thanks for watching. I hope it was useful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.